don't record it.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I thought. I would. When I did it, I was like, this is why I'm really doing that.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because that's an important thing, right? So I don't know if Angela's aware, but there's been a few comments from guys that come in on these Zoom meetings that are unaware that they're being published on YouTube as a reference for basically for everybody in the group, so they can go and find them later, but also they're public. So anyone who's interested in Course in Miracles and whatever can sit and watch them and hopefully get some kind of insight into their own thing. But there's a few guys that have been saying that they're feeling that there's no anonymity in that or something.
Well, they don't feel comfortable. Bottom line is it's just, one person in particular spoke it out, like, I don't want to be seen. And then someone else raised the question, which I was surprised, because I reached out to this other person about something else, about the little clips that I send out, and they were cool with that. But then I got a message saying, these go out to the public. I didn't realize that it was going out to the public. So maybe from that, I just made an assumption that they were uncomfortable. It just felt, why else say that unless you were uncomfortable about it being public?
So all of that stuff, right? So I know we talked about this morning, but all of that stuff, I think what we need to do is, in the little preamble that you put for the thing, for the meetings, just say these are public meetings. Welcome to a public Zoom meeting, whatever. Published to YouTube for future reference, or for what do you call it? Reference material, blah, 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 blah. But also, and we can probably use this talk as part of it or something, I don't know, because I know you were cutting up some videos into little clips to be useful. So if we use this one, the idea of these videos and what we're doing in this Zooming is part of the greater experiment of A Course in Miracles, right? So if you've got the blue book, it says, welcome to a great experiment in the very, very beginning.
Where? I heard that and I was like, I can look it up. But...
Oh, maybe in the new edition it doesn't. I remember in the one that I had, which was a very old one, just after the green one, and it came out in 3 books. And then it went to the first edition of the whole book, where they had the text and the workbook together, and it said, welcome to a great experiment. That was basically almost on the very first page, something like that. You don't have to look it up right now.
I know. You said it before and I forgot to look it up. That's fine. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Squirrel.
It's there somewhere. I've read it many times, and I remember hearing it as well in some of the videos. But everything, anyway, regardless, everything is an experiment, because what you're doing is attempting to look at ideas that you hold in mind that you think are actually verbatim and how things are, and then sort of juxtapositioning yourself back against those ideas, referencing the Course instead of your own thinking about them. So you've got 2 perspectives. And when you learn to make decisions, you're trying to learn to make decisions with the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of wholeness, and you sort of experiment. You kind of like take leaps of faith with where it is you go with your own decision making, and see what pans out, which is how you learn, right? So learning to listen to the Holy Spirit in the beginning is this kind of very haphazard sort of, you ask any student of the Course and they'll ask you, is like, how do I know when the Holy Spirit's speaking to me? Is it a voice, or is it a feeling, or is it an intuition? And there's all this stuff. And it's like, well, you've got to work that out for yourself. You've got to kind of experiment with your own spirituality until you start to pick up on it and feel it. It's like tuning a radio in. But generally there's a very set of specific, or in a general sense, there's a set of specific principles that you can apply, and the lessons and all of that stuff that helps you tune the radio. But at the end of the day, I can't tell you how to listen to the voice for God in you. You have to figure it out for yourself. We can come together to learn how to do that together, and it increases our ability, because like now we can back and forth ideas and be like, oh, I get it. the Holy Spirit would only ever speak to me for something that's in my own greatest interests and the interests of others, right? So the idea that I never get healing for myself alone is what I like to posture these meetings from, okay, or couch these meetings from. The idea that this Zoom meeting would be just for me, just for you, and just for you, that's what's the point? The potential contained within it to reach out and extend these ideas to others is far more than what it is for those of us participating in the meeting. It's not a meeting where we're coming together like an Alcoholics Anonymous or a Drug Addicts Anonymous and having this kind of shelter of anonymity about it. We're here to be exposed. We're here to blow the lid off. You know, I would only be concerned about my position within being exposed in a particular format on here if I had something to hide, right? Which is exactly what we're here to do, is to expose what it is we're trying to hide. So my social standing or my reputation with my friends and neighbors and whatever, they might think I'm crazy if they found out exactly what I'm doing or whatever. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. You are crazy. You got to keep your finger on your nose at all times. It's like, I don't want to be the crazy one in the family. I don't want to be the person in the street with all the cats, you know, like whatever. But it's like, what are you doing?
When it first came up for me, that's exactly what, when it first came up for me, when that whole thing with us being recorded and or the cameras needing to be on, and it was making me cry. Well, you know, I was talking to you about it. And right. I remember Annie, when I was trying to hide, and I was coming with all these really good ideas about how I could hide, like, we'll just do the recording, and I was trying to figure out how to do it, and Annie, like, she caught it, and she was like, what are you doing? And she asked me that question. I was like, when we inquired into it, it was like, I don't want my family to think I'm crazy. And she's like, well, what's wrong with that? And so we really went into that. It's like, I have to like confront that, and that has to be brought up for me to look at, right. That I'm right. trying to hold on to some sort of an image of Tina, which is not true. Anyway, didn't mean to interrupt.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. Like, this whole thing is to expose the attachment to the image, really. You know, we're learning to stay vigilant for the peace of God, which is our own sense of inner peace within our mind, which is that central place here and now. And everything else that distracts us out of that is what we're here to expose. And it gets really subtle. You can get that little kind of like, oh, you know, I didn't know I was doing that. You have lots of those moments where you think you're bippity bopping along on the top okay and everything, and then all of a sudden there's a bump in the road, and you're like, you try to recover from that bump in the road. It's like, hang on, there's no bump on the King's Highway. So it's like, what is that? You got to, you know, the slightest, Jesus says in the Course, the slightest little disturbance, you're in a peace, the tiniest of sighs, you know. It's like, nah, there you go, pothole. There's a bump on the road in the King's Highway. It's like, no, there isn't. It's in my mind. So all of these things that come up, I don't want to be, you know, like, it's funny because when we were talking about it briefly this morning, I had this idea. It's like, all right, well, you want guys to be able to enter in and feel comfortable until they get to a point where they realize that it's about exposing all of that stuff anyway, right? At first, it's like you come with all your lumps and bumps, and you come with your guilt and your false beliefs and everything, and it's like you're not sure what you're getting into. And by the time you realize that you're actually getting into a process of exposing your denial, it's kind of too late. What are you going to do? Just pretend you never heard that there is no world and go back to being in the world, you know, just doing the thing. And I had this funny thought. It's like, well, how can we let guys join in with this until they feel comfortable about exposing all their rubbish, you know, and thing. And I thought maybe we could all wear those little Groucho mask, nose and mustache, you know, and glasses. And then I realized what I was doing. It's like, nah, you can't do it like that. You can't, you know, it'd be so funny, wouldn't it? We'd all be here with those things, and we could change our names, just like Grumpy and, you know.
We'd all have the same name. We'd all be Groucho.
Yeah, we'd all be Groucho or Grouchy or what.
So who's talking now? It's Groucho. Okay, Groucho.
Yeah, Groucho Marx. So I'm going to get one. I don't even know if you can still get those things, but that would be funny. I kind of have one anyway. I have glasses and a mustache. And a big nose. But I saw that I was trying to accommodate for the denial, even in a humorous way. I was trying to accommodate for that which was being presented to me as a denial of the immediacy of being able to enter into an exposition of my falsity, right? So it's like, there is no leading in period. There is no comfortable zone in this. As soon as you're in, you're in. You know, one of the things that I love about the course is it picks you up straight where you're at. It doesn't matter whether you've been treading a spiritual path for 50 years or for 1 year. As soon as you pick it up and you start reading it, boom, everything's exposed, like immediately. You can't not, you know, the false beliefs start to fall away like dominoes everywhere. They just sort of go, go, go. And there's not really any chance to get comfortable with it. You're kind of like thrown straight into the deep end, and you just have to keep going until you learn to swim. And I actually remember many times sitting in the meditation room, sort of in my mind as loud as I could. Why me, Lord? Why does this course come to me? Why can't someone else do this course for me? Well, you know, but everybody goes through that period. Yeah. Everyone goes through that, like, how the hell why has this book come to me? You know, it was so funny. It's like just the funniest thing, you know. I want the revelation, but I don't want the work.
Exactly.
I want the reward, but I don't want to have to do the forgiveness. It's like, oh, let me think about that. Maybe I can just do some of the lessons. And it's funny stuff. All the bargains, you know, all the bargains I try to make in my own thinking about how I think my salvation could look, should look, you know, including whether I want to be exposed in a Zoom meeting. Like, of course I want to be exposed in a Zoom meeting. That's why I'm here. I want to find my blocks. I want to uncover my denial. That's the whole purpose of being in a Zoom meeting. And if that means being in a public forum where people I might know are going to go, what are you doing in a thing like that? And think that I'm crazy, so be it. Because that reflection is totally useful to me in bringing me to the next point of confrontation. And if I'm not making those confrontations with myself, because there's nothing out there going on, it's all going on in here. If I'm not making those confrontations with myself, I'm not really actually participating in my spiritual undoing. I'm just in some kind of spiritual comfort zone where I'm groovy because we're all spiritual now, you know. It's like, I don't want that. I want to find all my stuff. I want to find my junk and my denial and the blocks, like Jesus says, seek for the blocks and find them. I want to find them. Now, that's going to take whatever it takes. And like, having faced some of those blocks, a Zoom meeting is the least of my concerns. As you know, you've just been through 3 days of hell, right? Right? You wouldn't care less about a Zoom meeting in those 3 days of hell. It's like the furthest thing from your mind. It's like, what is this energy? It's like it's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up. And you adjust to it and adjust to it and adjust to it. And in the moment you don't adjust to it, something else happens that's not of your own making, and boom, shanker, you have an experience or a holy instant, right? Now, that's going to come around again for you, and don't adjust to it. No matter if the doorbell rings, people ask you out to shuffle dance, or no, it doesn't matter what it is. Draw that circle in the desert and do not get out of it. Stay in it, right? When you're new at this, and even I'm still new at this, but when you're new at this, it's hard to actually go out and live a life and do shopping and everything when you realize that you've got emotionality coming up, all this stuff coming up, right? Nowadays, I can carry whatever it is that comes up in me. I can carry that with me, like carrying it in a little aware suitcase, right? I can go to the shop and I can still be aware that I've got energy coming up, and I don't actually dispel it. I just sort of hang on to it for a second, like pushing a pause button, and then I go do what I do, and then I come back and I go play, and it'll keep going from where I left off, right? In the beginning, I would realize stuff would be coming up and I'd go and have a drink, or I'd smoke a joint, or I'd do something to try and push that energy away again because it was very uncomfortable. Right? And same thing, I want to find a reason for it. I want to look out there and blame someone or something. But there's no one to blame and there's no reason for blaming anyone. It's just I'm in a process of exposure, and the only appropriate position for me in that is defenselessness. All right, I have to totally trust in God here as I undergo this awful emotionality as it's coming up, right? And it does. In the beginning, it's terrible. Right? I mean, it's terrible now, but at least nowadays I'm facing the terrible stuff with a sense of adventure and a sense of cool, here's another challenge, or here's another crusade. You know, I'm not fearful of it anymore. I still don't like it. I still think it's terrible and horrible and awful and shit like that. But at least I know that all I have to do is be still, and it will pass. Right? This too shall pass. But if I adjust, then it goes away and I have to wait for it to come all the way back around again. Now, I don't know how long that cycle takes, like your particular thing that you've been going through. I don't know what that was, the threshold moment of a cycle that could have been a 5-year cycle, a 20-year cycle, a weekly cycle. I have no clue, right?
Well, I told you it felt like it was like every 2 days, like that was coming up, and then it was like you pushed, like you poked the bear,
right?
You know, and it was like I was like right on the.
I gotta poke the bear. I gotta poke the bear.
I know, but I mean, and I know. I know.
You would never poke your own bear.
No, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible. But it felt like it was that same energy that I was telling you about last Wednesday, like every 2 days.
Right.
It was coming up. And then right when it was like, I was like a little bit of relief, and you went boom. It was like, oh man, seriously. It was like, are you kidding me? Oh,
right, but it's horrible. Still there. It's still there, right?
Mm.
It'll show up in a different way. Okay.
I feel like it's trying to.
Ego, what the ego does is, and it's like you can use any story really. I could just put any story out there that you might have an association with, and you'll be able to go, oh, anything. You know, like even a little children's story where you make a house out of wooden blocks and stuff. You'd probably have done that as a child, right? You would have an association with it. You would have an association with within that story of a sibling taking the last block that you needed to complete your house, or losing some blocks so you can't finish making what it is. And that frustration, right? That frustration isn't the frustration that losing the blocks. It's the frustration of the situation you feel in your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everything in the world is symbolic, all symbolic, right? But the stories that are pertinent to you are the ones that are sort of got the biggest open wound. So if I was to tell you a story about when you were a little kid and you had blocks and whatever, it wouldn't hold much energy for you at this stage. Right? It'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was frustrating, whatever. And it wouldn't really, there's nothing simmering there, you know. But if I tell you a story that's directly relative to something like even now, like look at what's going on in America with the pro-life and the pro-choice and whatever, you know, all of that stuff. It's like, man, you could throw a feral cat in the middle of that stuff and it'd just go bang, like, you know, it's just so everybody has their trigger and their mechanism and their thing waiting to go off, right? When it goes off, you'll recognize it because all of a sudden you'll get incredibly emotional, right? And you probably won't like it unless you're emotional because you think you're going to get the better end of the stick on something. In this, there's no stick. There's no advantage. There's nothing that is going to come to you other than the opportunity to let go and release all defenses for or against. Right? So it's like in the Roe and the Wade thing, it's like in all of that whole situation, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on with that. There's no chance of a win. Mm-hmm. There's no chance of happiness at all, right? Whereas the Holy Spirit's plan is to choose for the outcome that brings everybody happiness. Hey, Anna. Right. Now, until you can see, and I was just reading about justice here. What is justice? Until you can see how the effects of your choice are going to fathom out in all contingencies, you're not able to choose effectively, right? So the only choice, oops, she's gone, oops, she's back. The only choice you can make is to choose your own sense of inner peace, right? I choose for my awakening, I choose to be peaceful. I'm withdrawing my, what would you call it? It's not really a mandate, but I'm withdrawing my desires to want to choose in the world for or against any of these things, right? And I'm going to let something else happen to fill that space that normally would have been filled by the effects of the choice I made. Okay, so I choose for this and this happens. I choose for that because cause and effect, right? Every choice has a result. So I'm choosing not for not making a decision about it based on those things. I'm choosing for God. I'm stepping back. I'm leaving the space empty, and I'm going to let something else happen that's, now that's not going to be understood by the world.
Right.
The world's going to say, well, that's just a cop out. You don't want to choose. You don't want to take a side. And it's like, well, you can think that if you want. But I have made a choice and I have taken a side, and it's the side that serves everyone, even though you're not going to witness to that until you actually begin to join with me in that same frame of reference, wherein we're elevated from worldly choosing and allow the effects of our choosing to be experienced not out here, but in our mind, where we can join in a holy instant that happens when we leave that blank. All right. To leave that blank effectively, or to leave that place blank effectively, takes practice, because the world is incredibly distracting, incredibly powerful, and it will always call upon you to witness to its effects, just as God is always calling upon you to apply forgiveness to your thinking about the world, so you can leave that place blank. Every time you listen to God's voice in that situation, or step back and refer to Jesus to help you make those decisions, or the Holy Spirit to help you make those decisions, you strengthen that part of your mind that listens for the voice for God. Right? You make it stronger, you give more credibility to it, and it starts to become something that you just want to do each time, because you realize that I don't have to choose for the this or that of the world. I don't care what anyone says about I'm just copping out, or I'm not wanting to make a decision about it. It's like, you're right, I don't want to make a decision about it. Why would I? Because I see that the only real effect of making a decision about either one of those things is that I keep myself in the loop of making decisions out here.
Yeah.
Right? I'm here for enlightenment. I'm not here to decide how the world should be. That's the last thing I'm here to do. I'm here pursuing my enlightenment, which is my escape from time and space in its entirety, right? Along with that, I'll bring with me as many as I can, or plant as many seeds as I can along the way, to those who have ears to hear. Now, I'm always telling you guys, don't adjust to your pain. Don't adjust to it. Draw your circle, sit in it, go to the bottom. I don't care if you blame me for feeling your pain. I don't care if you want to project onto me. And it's like, that's got nothing to do with me. I know it, right? It doesn't matter at all. You're always going to want to blame someone, right? What does it matter who you blame? You're still going to get the results of your own thinking. And eventually you're just going to go, you're going to come around to reason. You're going to go, well, there's no point in blaming anyone. It's like, well,
exactly. And that's really frustrating, because you just keep
of course
looking,
it is.
and like, I can't, like, oh man, I kept wanting to. It's like, I can't, and then I would come up with a different like way to do it, and I would try and I couldn't. Yeah, it's like, oh, but maybe this, and then that would feel.
There are no answers in your pointy little brain.
Oh my God.
None.
Oh, but then then you just have to be there. So
there is no love amongst those ideas that are bubbling around, right? The love in you comes from the kingdom of heaven, which is beyond all those thinking, beyond all those ideas, beyond all that trying to figure it out, right? In an admission of total responsibility, and a willingness to forgive. Not forgive me or whoever seems to be the catalyst for whatever the thing. Forgive yourself, thinking that the world is real and you're a body.
Exactly.
Oh, and that's not an idea of forgiving with an idea of guilt implied. There's no guilt implied, but there is an implication of total responsibility.
Which is so frustrating.
Of course, you don't want to be responsible for love. That would mean you have to love yourself completely.
God. But it's like those stories like slide in there, and for a minute you just kind of like.
Of course they do.
I'm just like, yeah.
Of course they do.
Why is it? And it's like, oh, but wait a minute. Okay, there I'm going again. I can't do that.
Right.
Oh man, I just gotta sit here.
But if they slide in there, if you react, if you're triggered by any story, don't adjust to it. Sit in it.
No.
See how deep it goes. Right? It's easy to go, oh, I'm triggered, I'll let that go. And it's like, well, that's cool. You can let that go. And it's like, really, that's what you are doing. You're just letting it go. But let's own it first. Right? There's no point letting it go if you're still thinking it's something out there to let go. Because that's not really letting it go. You can only really let it go once you've taken responsibility for it. Right? There's a million stories in the naked. You know that Bruce Willis, Sin City. Have you seen that?
Or I haven't seen Sin City.
Hang on, no, it's not. It's a similar movie. He's a detective.
That line sounds familiar.
Yeah. It's like a black and white, and he's like got a cigarette, and he's in his trench coat like Columbo sort of thing. He's like, there's a million stories in the naked city.
Is Bruce Willis? Anyway,
I don't think it is Bruce Willis. It's not Dirty Harry. Anyway, it's one of those detective ones, and he cleans up the city, and every episode it starts the same way. There's a million stories. It's like all of those stories have potential, right? Your mind is a storytelling mechanism in denial. It'll just make up a story about anything. In Australia, we have a saying that Australians will bet on two flies climbing up a wall, which one will get to the top. But we'll make up any kind of thing, anything that distracts us, we'll bloody look at it and make up, oh yeah, that, give it a meaning, and boom, 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 boom. It's like, that's the same with every single conscious association on the planet. Looking for meaning, trying to fabricate a meaning where there is none, deliberately, right? It's not like I'm suddenly a victim of a mind that's looking for meaning out there. It's like, no, I've programmed it deliberately to look for meaning out there and give it a meaning, good, bad, or indifferent, because that's what verifies my ideas of being separate from the whole. If I validate the world, which is always changing, then obviously my reality isn't changeless, and I can blame God. Obviously, God's not eternal. It's like, it's kind of crazy, because eventually you just get tired of doing it. You look at how it is you want to recover all the time from everything. And it's like, I'm telling you, resist not evil. Don't recover. A lesson repeats until it's learned, and what you resist persists. All of that sort of stuff. It'll come around again, right? You might take a breath for a minute and try to catch your breath, but I'm always going to encourage you, don't do that. Draw your circle and sit in it. Just get straight back into it and just sit there with that trigger and make sure it's done. As uncomfortable as that's going to be. What else are you going to do? I think it was Hafiz, one of my favorite Sufi poets, that spent 40 years with Rumi, I think, and I think that was the story, 40 years or something or other like that. and had no revelation, nothing, had a lot of beautiful teachings, but nothing really changed in his mind. And you got to understand that back then, there was no Course in Miracles 365 lessons workbook. You had to sit with another teacher who had sat with his teacher, who had sat with his teacher, and had all this stuff handed down, scribed into books, and you had to study all these different books and stories and try to click, 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 like opening a safe, trying to do it like this. Whereas the Course comes along and just tells you what to do.
I know.
It's like it just says it out, like, you know, there's no mystery anymore. It's just like, oh, the age of gurus is gone. And it's like, that's done. Now we're in the age of the teachers, which is guru anyway, but we're in the plan of the teachers rather than the plan of the prophets, right? So you just have to do your lessons, but
still don't want to.
Still don't want to, that's right. Hafiz sat for 40 years with Rumi and realized that it was time for him to step away, and within 40 days had his awakening.
Wow.
After he stepped away, right? He sat for 40 days, same as Jesus, 40 days in the thing. I don't know what the heck 40 days, the symbolic, energetic, whatever of that is, but it seems to be kind of like a thing. We used to offer 40-day intensives at the Healing Center for guys that weren't coming every day like me. We used to do a 3-day intro, so you'd have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you'd be housed at the center and fed and everything like that. And you'd be flat out all day, every day, doing meditation, prayer, and all sorts of different stuff, lectures and reading and studying, blah, blah, blah. It was like boggling, just 3 days. And then we would offer that as for anyone who'd done the 3-day, we would offer them a 40-day intensive, right? When they did the 40-day intensive, it was like that 3-day, but 40 days of it. And it was just like hell. People you just see their minds just going, they couldn't take it. And then something would happen and there'd be grumpy people, angry people, miserable people, crying people running around everywhere in the center. It was like, oh, they're doing a 40-day. And the guys that were doing that, the guys that were doing the 40-day thing, it was usually guys that were kind of new. Sometimes we would get other people that had been reading the course for a while and realized that they weren't really getting it or something and wanted help. But after that 40 days, they would either attend the center full time or not. They'd be encouraged to go back out into the world. I mean, if you're not going to hear this after a 40-day, all day, every day for 40 days, if you're not going to get some sense of what you're about in this, in that period, then it's like, what are you really doing? You know, like it's intense, like it's really, really intense. So, you know, in this idea of our Zoom meetings, it's got to hold that intensity as well, right? You don't want to give their time for your ego to recover every time there's a shift. Okay, you got to stay on top of it because the ego will just build a better defense using whatever it is you've learned so far to manifest in a new face of I'm okay, and not really actually have sat in and dealt with the issue of those elements of denial that are coming up, right? Which is why I'm always telling you guys, don't adjust, don't adjust, don't adjust. Feel the pain, let it be there. It's only got the meaning you've given it anyway, right? Try to be objective, step back from it and go, oh, I'm feeling something I don't like. All right, let me have a look at that. As soon as you're objective with it, it no longer really affects you. It's like you're watching a movie rather than being in the movie, right? So step back from it, look at it in your own mind. It's like, oh, I see, I've got all this hatred and dark and blah, 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 all this stuff coming up. All right, now let me sit in that. Let me just sit with it for a minute until the tip of the iceberg, and I can look down, I can see the whole iceberg under the water, right? Then I can own it. Then I can give it to God for healing, okay? It's not necessary particularly that you look at the whole iceberg, but it is necessary that you be willing to admit that there's probably more to it than you can actually understand, because it goes, well, it goes without saying really that even the tip of the iceberg represents the entirety of denial, represents the entirety of the schism of separation which you find yourself in. Any tip of the iceberg, it doesn't matter what it is, even the slightest little sigh, Jesus says, right? If you were totally honest with the slightest little sigh, right, that sigh represents separation, represents fear, right? It's like a snake. You can grab it just by the tail, the very, very tip of the tail. Grab that fear, right? You've got the whole snake. You hear that? Right. Now, if you had the choice to grab the head or the tail, you'd probably prefer to grab the tail. It's like the least dangerous end of the snake. You're still holding the snake, right? I'm always going to encourage you guys just to go for the head, right? Get the whole chunk of it. Let's just get it done, right? But who the hell wants to be sitting here in Zoom meetings for too long, you know? But like, if you got the tail, you can offer that tail. It's like, oh God, I don't know if this is a little snake or a big snake, but it's a snake. It represents, yeah, right? I hope it's a little one, but I've only got the tip of the tail. It's only a small iceberg. I'll look under. Oh no, it's a long one. It's a big one, right? But it's like, sit with it to whatever extent and capacity you can. Sit with it. Let it come up until you think you're going to explode or you're going to kill yourself or you're going to do whatever the hell. Let it come up to that threshold where you just can't take it anymore. At that point, wait a little bit longer, right? Because the thing with a threshold is it's a threshold.
You were the one.
Right. The thing with a threshold is you get to a threshold where you just can't take it anymore. At the point where you just can't take it anymore, it stops, right? You cross the threshold and then it's gone. It's done. Okay. But you've got to own it first. You've got to hold on to it. It's like, Holy Spirit, I've got this snake tail here. I'm hanging on to it. I don't want to let it go because I don't want it to have to go hiding in my house and come all the way back. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, that'll be shitty because I don't know where it's going to come at me from next.
Mm-hmm. I can't go to sleep.
Can't go to sleep. There's fear in my house and I want it out.
Snake in my house. I can't go to sleep.
Right, exactly. A lot of people I know, if they had even a mouse in their house, they wouldn't go to sleep. They'd be jumping up on the bed. Right, exactly.
This one.
Be grateful if you have a mouse. I mean, like, you don't want a snake.
Fighter.
Oh, I got bit by a spider last night in my bed 4 or 5 times on my buttocks.
4 or 5 times?
Yeah, it wasn't a poisonous one, but I found it in my bed this morning, and I had these things the size of, well, not that big, maybe the size of M&Ms, you know, like one on my hip, 2 or 3 on my butt, one on the back of my leg. So I must have rolled on it, and it's biting. But I didn't get no. I woke up this morning. I know. I woke up this morning. I'm like, what's this lump on my leg? I got these little lumps, and then I found this little brown spider. Well, it seemed kind of little, but I'd squished it. I'd rolled on it and squished it. Welcome to Australia.
I know. Awesome.
Anyway. All right. So, hey, I want to read this bit.
Okay.
How are you going, Anna? You had a lot of good energy going on last meeting too. Push through all that?
Yeah, it's funny because a couple nights ago, I had a big energetic release and I was up super sick for like 3 hours, just throwing up everywhere.
Oh.
Super painful. And then I was fine. So it was good. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. You look better. Your energetics are sort of like, you know, you look like out ready to step into the bull ring again.
Why not?
You've had a couple of days rest. Exactly. Why not? That's what we're here for. So I just wanted to read this. All right. So this is about what is justice. I'm just going to read this down to this bit, okay? Because it sort of goes to what we were just talking about before, where every little bit of holding the snake's tail is the whole thing. And that's really what you're learning in this. Like, you're learning that there's nothing in the world, even the good stuff, that doesn't represent denial, right? The best stuff in the world that you think, oh, well, how can that be the denial of God? Because people are in church, or people are in a group meeting and they're talking about God, whatever. It's like, well, the best things in the world here is only still lipstick on a skeleton, right? The whole purpose of everything that we're doing here is to bring about a state of mind where Jesus calls it in the course revelation readiness, right? Where you're ready for a revelation. Now, a revelation is not of the world. It's divine. It's like Moses in the burning bush, or, Jesus going up with Simon and Peter and seeing Moses and Elijah on the mountain and having a conversation, all of these sorts of things. A revelation is something that is divine and not rooted in temporal ordered concerns. Right? It's always something that's going to be beneficial to you, always something that you're going to be able to transpose onto your thinking so that it brings a blessing to your life and a blessing to the lives of others that you think about and interact with. But it has nothing to do with the way that it's sought out or seen in the world, if that makes sense. Right. So it's just a state of mind. Revelation readiness or miracle mindedness, it's the same sort of thing. Miracle mindedness is basically living in faith. Okay. You're miracle minded, you're living in faith. Living in faith will lead you to a threshold. Okay, you have a moment of faith, you have a moment of faith, you have a moment of faith. You see that you have no way around this disease or this money situation or this social agenda. You got no way around it. You need a miracle, right? It's like, I'm going to step back and I'm going to take my hands off the wheel. I'll just let Jesus sort this out for me, right? And I have a good one that you can quote me on this one if you want. It's like, Jesus pays the bills. That people always say to me, you spend so much money on things, Dave. It's like, well, yeah, but I only spend money on stuff that I think is going to benefit everybody. It's like, I wouldn't buy anything for myself alone, except for beanies maybe. But everything's always got a benefit to others. Otherwise, why do I want it? What's it for, right? So, and in that, the universe supports you. Jesus pays the bills, right? It's the same with everything, miracle-minded. But being miracle-minded, you'll have these threshold moments where when you come to a leap of faith with something, it gets scary at the very threshold. How am I going to pay my bills? I've got no job. I've got nowhere to live. All of these sorts of concerns that people have all the time. They're just common ones, And it's like, well, let it be a miracle. I can't let it be a miracle. What if, there's a million reasons why not, but it's like, let it be a miracle. Someone or something always happens. Something always turns up, right? Little by little, those moments, you'll be like, I was supported here. I was supported there. I was supported over in this place, in that situation, in this event. It's like, and your mind starts to become more trusting and more familiar with the idea of a higher power. When it gets to that point where that trust or that familiarity or that feeling of support becomes stable, right, or more open-minded, then revelation can be given to you. Whilst you're still flip-flopping in doubt, you're giving your time and your experience in the world to your ego, right? Jesus is not about to give you a revelation of something divine if your ego is just going to snatch it and turn it into another fabric of identity that you're going to weave into the story of whoever you think you are. You know what I mean? It's like you don't trust a little child of 5 years old with a box of matches. And literally a revelation, a true revelation of something divine is, to the ego, it's a box of matches to make a bigger fire, right? But to the spirit, a revelation is something that not only confirms reality, but offers a greater vista, a greater view of the approach or the awakening to reality in the world, right? Beyond the Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles is just a curriculum to get you to pay attention. That's it. All Jesus is saying in the Course is be still, listen, pay attention. God is talking to you. Listen. That's all, right? Through your forgiveness, you'll clear away all the dross so you can listen, so you can hear, so you can train yourself to be still and know that I am God. Not I mean, I am, but so are you. But in the biblical sense, be still and know that I'm God, right? When your mind is able to do that, then you're becoming revelation ready. More can be given to you, more can be added. Okay. The whole purpose of this is to bring you to a point where there is nothing in the world that can determine your thought process or your decision making, that you're completely dependent upon God, bringing your mind to a singular state of beingness, where you walk in the world but not of it completely. In that, your singular state aligns with the singular state of God. Alpha and Omega come here and boom, you go vertical. Right? Everything shifts. Everything shifts. The whole of your consciousness just goes whoop, gone. It's like changing the channel on a TV and you'll find yourself back in eternity or back wherever it is that Jesus is directing your revelation to make you aware of. Okay. And that'll be whatever's in the greatest interest of the sonship, not your greatest interest, which will also be in your interest, but it's not for you alone. Which is why in these Zoom meetings, these are not for you guys alone. These are not for me alone. We might have some immediate benefit of it in helping us to come together and remember and our purpose and everything. Which in this world you need that reminding again and again and again. Because it's so easy to walk out your front door and then a whole day goes by and you're like, I forgot to be miracle-minded today, or I forgot to give my day to God. There's always this absence, right? The ego corrupts everything. Even my own best efforts are not enough. I need to learn to become miracle-minded, dependent on God in every moment, all the time. Right? So learning to let go of external dependencies helps me to do that. Right. So one of the things that I like in this is that it explains, and I'm going to read 10 minutes ago, I said I'm going to read it, but I'll get to it, is that it explains the nature of why it is that you need to have that ever-expanding vista, right? It's not enough to simply sit here with the Course and go, oh, I'm okay now, I've got the Course. This makes sense to me. Oh, and it's my security blanket. It's like you can use it like that, but eventually you're going to get to the bit where Jesus says, and now forget this Course. And you're like, if you make it into a security blanket, it's going to be harder for you to want to forget it, right? You have to understand and take it on board that this Course is preparing me for something that is beyond it in its entirety. This is a beginning, okay? Having had several revelations and the experience of the illumination of my mind, I can tell you that what it is that you're going to experience through this Course is like, oh man, it's like the least tasty thing at a king's banquet on the table. It's the like looking at this is reading this and studying this. You may be grateful for it now, but it's like you're the dog at the king's table getting the droppings. Really, it's what's above, it's what's on the table just above you that you want. And it's like, don't be satisfied with this, right? Use this, get into it, use it to get to the point where you don't need it anymore. Okay, that's the whole purpose of it. My whole purpose is to make myself redundant to you, right? But you have to begin to see outside of the box and see the whole vista, where judgment falls away about things, because there's no way you can truly judge what you don't understand. And if you're looking through the body's eyes and listening to your own perception of things, all your understanding is something that's contained within a very narrow bandwidth of consciousness that really still, even in your own spiritual determination, still represents the denial. Even though you're standing there going, yeah, but I'm doing my forgiveness work and I'm blah, 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 blah. It's still contained within the parameters of the thing of denial, but it's bringing you closer and closer and closer to being revelation ready. Right? Now, when you don't adjust to your pain and you go through those thresholds and conscious shifts, those moments beyond those conscious shifts, it's like a ladder. You're putting your foot there, 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 there. It's like, I don't know how to sit in my circle. I need a miracle. I don't know how to not adjust to my pain. I need a miracle. I need help, right? But you have the Holy Spirit in you, and you can call upon the Holy Spirit to help you be still, to help you undergo whatever it is you need to undergo in the process of relinquishing all temporal association, regardless of whether you're completely aware of how far-reaching it is or how long the snake is. Okay, so in last week's meeting, we were talking about lineage and historic references and cultural delineations and things like that between people and races and stuff like that. And it was quite triggering. You know, I've looked at those sort of ideas and stories quite a few times, several times in my own thing, when I've been prompted and triggered by it in like news articles or social events and things like that. And I sit there and I look at it, right? You've only got so many things in the world that you can use as a catalyst. It's like, all right, let me look at this situation honestly and see if it's easy to turn my head and go, oh, I don't have to watch what's on TV. I'll talk to somebody else. You know, I don't have to feel anything about this. It's not my problem. It's easy to do that. But it's like I wouldn't think that way unless it was my problem. Right? I'm one with everything. I'm one with everything. So all of the stories, like last week when we were talking about generational imprinting, right, or cellular imprinting, where Jesus says the sins of the father will be visited upon 3 generations, right? So that's a true thing. It's like whatever my parents went through in, let's say my grandparents, right, 2 generations, or my great-grandparents, they went through world wars. Their whole, and I'll give you this as a good example, actually. In World War II, right, one of my grandparents was in both world wars and one was in only one. But in World War II, my grandmother ran a tiny little cafe at the airfield where the military pilots would take off from when they would go from England to Germany on a bombing run and stuff in London, right? It was a massive airfield, big military airfield. She ran the cafe with a bunch of other ladies. Everybody did something in the war effort. And one of the things they were always encouraged to do and to take on board was, don't trust anyone. You could not trust anyone. You didn't know if there was a spy in your midst. You didn't know whatever, right? You never trusted anyone. You just shut up. You did what you were told, and that was it, right? Now, that don't trust anyone came to me when I was a young man through my dad and my mum, really, but more dad. Dad used to drive it into me because that's what he'd been brought up with. That was the war mentality, right? Being a 3rd generational descendant of my grandparents and their parents before them, who also went through the First World War, it was drummed into me. You can't trust anyone in this world, Dave. You can't trust anyone, right? And I took that on. When I was a boy, I took it on and I understood it, and they said why, and they explained to it and whatever. And, you know, this happened during the war and you never know. And it's the same thing now. You know, if you open up to somebody, can you trust them to keep your personal things that you share with them in a moment of vulnerability sacred? Or are they just going to go chit-chatting around and gossip? The next thing you know, that person really wasn't my friend anyway. But I took that on board. Don't trust anyone, right? That put me into a lot of situations where I restricted myself consciously and perhaps subconsciously, restricted myself from allowing a give of myself into a situation. I didn't want to give too much. I didn't want to give too much away, show too much of who I was and all of this sort of thing. And I realized that I was only kind of half living because of it. I wasn't living my full life, right? Because I didn't feel like I could trust anyone, or I had this kind of in the background here, this program running about don't trust anyone, don't trust anyone. And it kind of governed a lot of stuff that I did. Right? And it took for me, I actually about 2 years ago, I went to my dad. He's at 84 now, and I feel kind of bad for doing this, but I had to get it off my chest. I said to him, Dad, I said, I remember you telling me many times not to trust anyone when I was a young man, and it really fucked me up. That's the only way I could put it to. I couldn't think of a more gracious way to say it. And I said, you taught me a lot of really good stuff, but that one really fucked me up. It messed with my head, and I didn't even realize how much until I found A Course in Miracles and a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, but I understand why you taught me, because that's how you were taught, and blah, 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 blah. And it was a wartime thing, that's where it all stemmed from. So when we did out, and Dad and I had a healing over it, it was kind of like, it wasn't a major like father-son healing moment. It was just like, oh, one of those sort of ones. But when I telling you guys last week about generational stuff, I mean, some of those triggers are deep. Some of those are grabbing the head of the snake, right? Don't turn away. Grab the head of the snake if that's what's presented. Just grab it, right? And have faith. I think there's a line in the Bible where it says those who have faith can pick up snakes or something, even in the Old Testament. Deuteronomy or something. I'm not going there. That's all the names, isn't it? But anyway, I'm going to get to reading this. So, but it's like understanding the vista, understanding the bigger view of things, right? We tend to think of ourselves as, I'm Dave, this is my job, this is my family, this is my house. And that's about as far as we go really in any particular given day. We don't stop and think about, I wonder how many reactions would come up in me if I investigated my family history going back 3 or 4 generations. It's like, man, I looked at the history of white people in this country as having been the persecutors, is that the word? Perpetrators, persecutors of a heinous freaking action against the traditional landowners here, the same exactly as white people, my ancestors, did in America, and God knows how many other countries with the native Indian populations there, like predominantly Dutch, English, and French, but then I also look at how they were taught, right, as a defense. They were quite a peaceful people until the Vikings came and slaughtered them all for their land and just took the land. They used to only argue amongst themselves until then, right? They got the idea of sailing across the ocean and taking somebody else's land from the Vikings and from northern, what are they called? Not Anglo-Saxons, but up there. And it's like, it's just this thing that gets perpetuated. That it's okay to do something ridiculously there's not even a word for it. It's horrific. It's like, genocide doesn't even cover it. It's like, but just to put myself into a posture where if I went back 5 or 6 generations or 5, they would think that was okay. Now, how do I correlate that in my mind? Because in my mind, I look at that and I go, that's completely nuts. The last thing I would want to do is like take a canoe or a sailing ship, go across the other side of the world, kill everybody there and take their land. It's like, there's nothing farther from my own thinking. Yet I can't rule that out of my own thinking because somewhere it's in my genetic lineage, right? Somewhere I come from that and I can react to that, and my reaction to it, good or bad, right? And in this case, it was bad. It was like, I don't want to be associated with those people. I don't have any choice. I can't paint myself a different color. It's like I'm a white person. I have a white person's history and I'm completely ashamed of it. It wasn't me particularly, I hope, back then that did all those things, but I can take responsibility for how I feel about it now, right? I can forgive myself on behalf of the sonship for projecting blame and whatever. And then the vista that opens up for that in that forgiveness is that there is one mind waking up, right? There is one mind waking up. Every nationality, every race, every religion has fought, argued, killed each other, murdered, stabbed, robbed since the beginning of time. Cain and Abel, right? I forget which one killed the other one, but with a rock. But I think Cain killed Abel. But since then, it's like, that's what I'm taking responsibility for. But it gets played out on the screen of consciousness as this country invades that country. Somebody here starts a war in that somebody else's country, takes their oil and whatever it is. It's just, it doesn't stop. But there are triggers in each story. There are triggers in everything for me. Some of them you're going to look at and you're going to go, like in the Balkan Islands. I don't know if you remember that one in the England, and you know, I wasn't particularly triggered or upset by anything there. I couldn't really find anything, but I'm sure if you were a person in the Balkan Islands, you'd be like extremely triggered. You couldn't avoid it, right? Or in England or whatever. But all of these things, when confronted, right? Don't think that just because you've got a little house and a job and everything that it's not you, right? There's no accident that you're watching the news. There's no accident that you have a conversation with someone who tells you about some despicable thing that happened in the past. There are no accidents, right? Let it in. Let everything in and feel it. This is the only experience that you have. Your human experience is the only one you have. You can't go out and get another bit later on, right? Use everything. Question everything. Let everything in. If it triggers you, if it activates you, if it makes you emotional or whatever, fantastic, 2 thumbs up, good or bad. If you get excited about it, and you know, it's like, I still know people around here that like have a completely bigoted, racist view on things. And it's like, there's no point even arguing with them. It's like, how does that happen? How does, in this day and age, how do people still judge other people, really? You know, it's like, it's not my place to judge them because I'm making the same mistake, right? But I can't change them. All I can do is change my mind and be an example of something other than that, right? It's a funny thing. But every time you do that, every time you're willing to let something in, every time you're willing to sit in it and heal it, go right to the bottom of it, a whole bunch of stuff gets snipped out of your own human script, let's say, and something else can happen. When something else happens, a bigger vista, because you've refused to judge something, good or bad, a whole nother thing happens and you get to see more of the big picture. Right? That encourages you to want to continue and go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like, wow, I just had a miracle. I just had a thing. And then boom, shanka, you have a revelation. When you have a revelation, suddenly you're given a reference point that has nothing to do with the world. Right? Beyond concepts, beyond the book. It's your experience. You were there, you saw it, it happened. You get to walk with angels. You get to hang out with Jesus in the bardo, or whatever you want to call it, you know, things like that. So those are literal experiences. Those are experiences that I've had and people I know have had, and they're beyond the world, right? Those are revelatory experiences. You're entitled to them. And that's probably going to be the biggest hurdle in this, is your own doubt and unbelief that you're entitled to them. All right? Jesus says it's not that you don't ask for stuff, you don't ask for enough. You're worthy. You're free. You're a child of God. Try to get that in your head. You're a child of God. You are a child of God. That's a big one. It's easy to say, but to feel it, to really feel it, to really acknowledge it, to really take it on board and own it and walk with it. I'm a child of God. I'm the Christ, along with you. I can't deny it. I've had so much stuff goes on in my life. I can't deny it. Dave, the mythical figure, the avatar, isn't that. But I am that. And all of these things help to expand the view. Anyway, I'm going to read this now. What is justice? Justice is the divine correction for injustice. Injustice is the basis for all the judgments of the world. Ready? Injustice is the basis for all the judgments of the world. That's shattering. That's earth-shattering. Injustice is the basis for all the judgments of the world. There's not one judgment I can make in this world about anything temporal that isn't rooted in injustice. Right? It's a conscious choice to be unjust. So, ooh, that's a biggie. Justice corrects the interpretations to which injustice gives rise and cancels them out. Neither justice nor injustice exists in heaven, for error is impossible and correction meaningless. In this world, however, forgiveness depends on justice, since all attack can only be unjust. Justice is the Holy Spirit's verdict upon the world. Except in his judgment, justice is impossible, for no one in the world is capable of making, ready, listen to this, for no one in the world is capable of making only just interpretations and laying all injustices aside. No one, not even yours truly. If God's Son were fairly judged, there would be no need for salvation. The thought of separation would have been forever inconceivable. Justice, like its opposite, is an interpretation. It is, however, the one interpretation that leads to truth. This becomes possible because whilst it is not true in itself, justice includes nothing that opposes truth. Right? Justice includes nothing that opposes truth. If you could get the judges in any court in the land to read just this page, it would change the nature of, like this one page. There is no inherent conflict between justice and truth. One is but the first small step in the direction of the other. The path becomes quite different as one goes along. Nor could all the magnificence, ready? Listen to this, is exactly what we're talking about. Nor could all the magnificence, the grandeur of the scene, and the enormous opening vistas that rise to meet one as he travels on be foretold from the outset. All right, I'll read that again. The path becomes quite different as one goes along, right? You've probably already started to notice that it shifts and changes, right? The path becomes quite different as one goes along. Nor could all the magnificence, the grandeur of the scene, and the enormous opening vistas, enormous is it's beyond enormous, that rise to meet one as he travels on be foretold from the outset. Okay, you can't understand what's ahead of you just by reading A Course in Miracles. It's impossible. It's experience. It's got to be experienced. You can't know what it's like to stand on the top of Mount Everest until you actually climb it. You can look at all the pictures, you can read all the books, you can talk to all the other people that have done it, but you can't know it until you do it. You don't know what the view is like from up there. Okay. This course is telling you that from the outset, which is, this course is what we use at the outset to set our way. Right? From the outset, you can't imagine the magnificence of the vistas, of the view, of the overall picture. It's beyond. It's like, I'm feeling it now, but it's like, man, I remember having a moment where I realized just how expansive the rescue effort is to get us out of this freaking dimension. It's like we've fallen down a crack in eternity into this dreamscape realm that has no bearing on our reality. And Jesus is looking down the crack going, oh, I see you guys down there. We got to get you out. What are you doing down there? You know, it's like, you know, you ever see those things like in Mexico when the kid falls down the well and there's like 500 people trying to dig him out in an excavator, and like it's a huge effort to get one kid out, you know, in a country where life is cheap, but that one kid, you know, it's like that musters hope and joy and everything, right? This is millions, billions, infinite realms of like realms, dimensions, everything. Every action of every level of creative reality that is encompassed in the journey of the soul. Like people say, oh, we're going from third dimension to fifth to ninth, whatever. All of that's well and good. But all of those dimensions serve this. All of them. You are the most important thing in all of eternity. You. Now, that's a lot to take on board. Put your finger on your nose. Do it. Say to yourself, I'm the most important thing in all of eternity. You are the child that's fallen down the well. Jesus is in charge of getting you out. He's like the foreman. But the amount of workers, if you can appreciate how much is going on, it's like, I'm here to tell you guys, like, there's a plan and you can begin to participate in it, right? Stop wriggling, stop adjusting, stay still so we can get you out, right? That's the whole thing. You're afraid of being down the hole because you think if you don't get out, it's going to collapse in on you or you'll be gone forever and whatever. So you wriggle, and you adjust to your situation again and again and again. But literally the act of adjusting pushes you further in, gets you more stuck. Be still, face your fears of being stuck and allow yourself to be rescued. That's the confrontation. This course is either active in you as that, or you're not doing it properly. Right? And it's not that you can't really do it properly, but you're not really giving it the full focus that, you know, it's like I know people that have read this for 20 years and nothing's happened to them. They know it word for word, but they're not active. They've never confronted a fear. I have people tell me all the time, oh, I've had that book for 20 years. It's like, have you done the workbook? What workbook? Have you even read it? I've read some of it. If you can appreciate how much, like, you know, like, nor could all the magnificence, the grandeur of the scene, and the enormous opening vistas that rise to meet one as he travels on be foretold from the outset. You buy this book and you can't foretell all of that from the outset. You can read it, you just put it on the shelf. That's a nice book. It's a bit hard. I'll just put it away until later. You know, it's like, man, just make the effort, you know, make the effort, take the step. It doesn't matter if you don't understand it. Your step will be supported. Your step will be supported. Your understanding is not required. It's a leap of faith. You can't understand a leap of faith. That's why it's a leap of faith. It's not a leap of, oh, I get it. It's a leap of faith because you don't get it. You can't get it. It's impossible to get it. Faith implies divinity, and divinity is the thing that you've denied. And I have people tell me, oh, and I haven't really denied it. Jesus says in the Course that it's just a dream, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, man, it's hard work. It's hard work. It's like you get guys that pick this book up and they like the amount of arguments I've had, and all you can do is come back and all you can say is, have you had an experience? You know, if you have, then there's nothing to talk about. If you haven't, then do the lessons. You know, once you begin to have an experience, it's like, that's the whole point of this. It's just the hardest thing to get you to stay still, to get you to stay in the circle and don't adjust. You only have to do it once totally, and it's done. I ran out of the room many times. It doesn't really, you know, like when we used to do our light sessions and stuff, man, the energy in there can get intense. You know, it's just like the intensity of confronting, you know, when you're a kid and you do something wrong and you know your parents are going to catch you. You know that there's no way in hell they're not going to notice what you've done and you don't know how to fix it, right? That energy of just that impending doom, right? Exactly, right? It's funny stuff. Stay still in that. You cut off your brother's hair while he was asleep on one side of his head, made this big chunk. He hasn't discovered it yet, but when he next looks in the mirror, he's going to be like, what the hell? All hell's going to break loose. And you know it. And you live in the trepidation and fear of that moment of occurrence because you've already projected onto it what could possibly happen. He's going to go and tell the parents, and then you're going to get a spanking and, you know, all of that. So anyway, don't adjust, don't adjust, don't adjust. That's going to be my mantra. Do not adjust. See these beads, everyone, do not adjust. Do not adjust. Do not adjust. But it takes a minute. It takes some mind training. It takes 365 lessons to get you into the field of focus where you realize what it is you're doing in your own mind so you can make a decision not to do that again. It's like an alcoholic. Every time I drink, something bad happens. Well, let me not drink. But it's like in the moment where you start drinking, you forget that you made a decision not to drink before. And rather than put the drink down, you tell yourself, next time, next time, next time. And so the cycle goes on and on and on. It's like, all right, let me deal with it now. The only time I can deal with anything is now, here and now. Oh, let me finish reading this a little bit. It gets better. Yet even these, foretold from the outset, yet even these whose splendor reaches indescribable heights as one proceeds, fall short indeed of all that waits when the pathway ceases and time ends with it. I got a phone call. That's weird. Hang on. It was Happy John that came to one of our Zoom meetings once. I'll call him, remember Johnny Carter?
Johnny?
Yeah, Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about him today. How funny.
Right.
Little John, no, we call him Little John.
Rain. Little John. We call him Happy John. He used to own 3 of the Happy High herb shops here, like the natural herbs things that.
What's his last name?
Carter. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Kind of does.
Yeah, should have just told him here. Where are you? We're on Zoom. But all right, well, that must be done. I forgot what I was talking about now. But little correction brought into consciousness by John there. Thank you, Brother John. So, here we go. All right, so I was going to read the end of this. Yet even these whose splendor reaches indescribable heights as one proceeds fall short indeed of all that waits when the pathway ceases and time ends with it. But somewhere one must start. Justice is the beginning. Right? Somewhere one must start. Right? This is the start. This is where we're looking at the idea of dispelling all error, of allowing the Holy Spirit to show us the truth beyond our fears, the truth beyond our illusions of ourselves. Right? That's going to be fearful. The last thing we want to do is change. Human beings hate change. We fear it. We rarely embrace it. We like to hold it all together, and if nothing changes, I'll have peace. But that's not how peace is found. Peace is found by going with the flow and accepting the changes and not trying to resist them. As soon as you resist something, you're putting yourself into a state of conflict with it. Right? Right? As soon as you let go of resistance and go with the flow, then the next thing can happen. Yeah, but I don't want that to happen. It's like, yeah, but you just said you're going to give up the world and follow Jesus, and now you're trying to decide how that ought to look. You'll be led very specifically. When you give up the world, right, you will be led very specifically into situations and events that contain opportunities for forgiveness. If it was up to you, you'd never forgive anything. You just hang on to it all here and tell yourself you're okay about everything. I'm all right. Those people are all screwed up over there, but I'm okay. Those people are reflections of something you don't want to look at in yourself. Everyone's your mirror. I wouldn't see it out there if it wasn't a thought in my own head that I'd given a meaning to. It wouldn't bug me at all unless I'd already decided that it was going to bug me. I project it out onto someone else because it does bug me in here. And I think that by dissociating myself from it, I can escape from the effects of it in my own thinking. But instead, all that happens is I project it out, forget that I've projected it out because I'm not even aware that's what I'm doing. And then it comes around in a cycle because mind is whole, and I see it again out there and I blame somebody else for it. But I still get upset about it. That idiot, that stupid person, that fool. And all that Jesus is telling me is that I can't judge. How can I judge when I don't know the big picture? All I can do is judge for the efficacy of my teaching learning curriculum. Right? I'm learning to use my judgments to support my efforts in forgiveness, which will release me from the necessity from judgment entirely. You can't just suddenly stand up and go, I'm never going to judge again. That doesn't happen. You judge everything every day. Am I going to wear the yellow beanie or the red beanie? That's a judgment. I'm using my judgment to decide for a temporal association based on what it is I think I prefer. Something as seemingly innocuous as a beanie is just as much, am I going to invade Russia or am I going to invade China? It's the same decision. It's an externally oriented decision. It validates the entirety of the world and every decision ever made within it. Jesus is only standing there going, come on, give up the world, follow me. Come on, let's go. Let's get out of here. Hold tight on the rope and I'll pull you up out of that crack. Yeah, but I still got more beanies. I just want to maybe I got another beanie coming in the mail tomorrow, like, it's like, what do you want? You can't have both. You can't serve two masters. You want to stay down there in that stinking little hole in Mexico, or you want to come out where the vista is so amazing you can't even imagine how amazing it is? The world is a poor excuse for a habitat for a child of God. Very, very poor. Even the most beautiful of palaces and stately homes here is still just nothing compared to the glory of God. It's nothing. It's like, I used to think that if I could just spend the rest of my life in Bahamas or somewhere in one of those huts, you see those postcards where the little houses are out on the water on stilts, and there's like that Bora Bora. To me, that's like, wow, that's really beautiful. Look at that. I could live in a postcard forever. And it's like, you get there and you'd fuck it up with your pointy little brain. I guarantee it. You'd be bored in 3 days. So now what am I going to do? It's a long way to the shop. I've got to walk all the way back down. You'd find reasons to be pissed off about your situation, even though at one point you would have said, this is the best option for the situation I'm in. Familiarity breeds contempt. There's nothing in the world that's going to fulfill you. You're not looking for something in the world for an idea of being fulfilled. You're actually consciously deciding for things out in the world so you can remain in the state of unfulfillment. I'll just find the right partner, the right person, and then I'll feel fulfilled. That's what you tell yourself, but that's not really why you're looking for the right partner, the right person. You're looking for the right partner and the right person out there so you can stay in this state of conflict. Jesus knows that that's what you're doing, and he jumps in there with the Course in Miracles and goes, all right, well, I see you're going to do that anyway, so let's apply these principles to that thing that you insist on doing, and let's make that relationship into a holy relationship where suddenly you see that there's no purpose to it other than as a catalyst for forgiveness so we can get you out of the goddamn hole. But you think there's something shiny at the bottom of the hole. You keep looking in the hole. It's like, well, hang on, don't pull me up just yet, because there might just be one more relationship or one more thing here that's going to make me feel good. Just one more crack. I'll give it one more go. It's never going to fulfill you. The only thing that will fulfill you is within. The kingdom of heaven is within. There's nothing out there. I mean, out there, be your brother's keeper. Out there, extend the light of the joy of having finally realized that happiness comes from within. Into a world where everybody seems hell-bent on trying to have more possessions and power and prestige and all of these things that they think is going to make them feel happy. It's like, dude, come with me. I know this guy called Jesus. Come and check this out. See if this makes any sense to you. And then we can review it together, because I need to hear it as much as you do. Our interests in that are the same. Every single day I wake up. Here I am, Lord. Make me a vessel today. Help me today. Help me to get through this day with whatever comes. And if I'm honest about whatever comes, it's going to trigger me. It's going to push all my buttons. So thank you. Thanks for pushing my buttons. I'm learning to be grateful. Wow, thank you. Thank you for showing me that there's still a bit of that snake in me, that I'm still stuck down the hole there somewhere. There's no point walking around all day completely ignorant of my denial. I want someone to be in my face, confronting me or some situation so that I can get this done. Let's be about it. I'm here about my Father's business. It's like, I don't want to be a slacker. I'm not here to be spiritual and be nice about things. It's like, man, I'm like, drop me in the deep end. I'm entitled to miracles, so there's nothing to worry about. Draw the circle, step into it. Don't step out of it until it's done. Draw the circle, step into it. Don't step out of it until it's done. Okay. Every emotional reaction to things will have a threshold. This too shall pass. And sometimes it feels like a big boulder in your gut coming up and you get stuck in your throat and it's horrible and all these sorts of things. You'll have all sorts of reactions to the Holy Spirit doing whatever he's doing down there. Right? Don't be concerned about that. It's happening on a whole nother level. There's some guy on a whole other dimension working on a computer, getting you like, oh, I see Tina there. She's going through stuff. All right, I'll try and speed that up. Oh, she adjusted. God damn it. I've got to wait for her to come back now. It's like that. Anyway, but at least you can see, like the good thing is you can see what you're doing in your own mind. Oh, I did adjust. I totally let myself off the hook. So, okay, God damn it, that's going to come around again now. Right? And you'll know it when it does, and don't adjust next time. Right? It's like some people I know go to they'll move to another town. They'll go to a whole other city, reinvent themselves all over and start over because their life is shit. My life's terrible. I'm getting out of this town. I'm going to move somewhere else where the people are nicer and the job opportunities are better and blah, 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 whatever it is. And they go there taking their same old stinky mind with them. And when they get there, they start to manifest the same situations because they take their thoughts with them wherever they go. Right? Before you know it, it's like, oh, this town's just like the last one I left. I can't trust these people either. And those people are, blah, you know, this, that, and the fingers do this out there, out there, out there instead of here. Oh, hang on a minute. I only know what things are because it's my thoughts telling me what they are. What if my thoughts don't mean anything? Why would I listen to my thoughts then? Whose thoughts can I listen to if my thoughts don't mean anything? What about God's thoughts? Preposterous, preposterous. That's old stuff. No one believes in that anymore. I had someone today wrote a thing about, there was a survey in Australia about people that believe in, oh, hang on, no, I don't think it was believe in God. I think it was people that are religiously observant or something, or have a religious belief. I think that was it. And 40% of Australians don't believe in anything. Like we're just kind of like heathens down here. We don't believe in anything. And there's been a decline by 35% over the last 10 years or whatever. But now 40% of Australians don't believe in anything, any God. And somebody wrote a comment going, thank God for that. Finally, we can stop believing in fairy tales and just get on having a good time, you know, like all this sort of stuff. And then the guy underneath wrote something about being an atheist, and it's like it just went on and on and on and on and on, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I'm in the thick of a fucking idiot bin here. Like this, just like I can see the work, you know, like I can see the whole vineyard. You know, Jesus says the harvest is enormous and the workers are few. And it's like, I look at that. What do I do here, Jesus? Do you want me to reply to every single comment? There was like something like 2,500 comments on the thing. And it's like, what do I do? It's like, if I put one comment that represents anything with a reasonable perspective online, I'm going to be crucified. You know, like people are going to jump on it and go, oh, you God botherer, and blah, 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 blah. It'll be there. But so I didn't do anything. I just left it. I went, nah, just a dream. Just scroll. I'll find one that I can deal with on a better level, you know. Like,
that was popping up in my feed too.
Was it?
Yeah, well, the whole thing, you know, Roe versus Wade. So now, I mean, and I haven't been on Facebook because I've been so like just whatever. But today I had a minute, and it was like every post was sort of like blaming like Christians for issues.
Oh, yeah.
And they were all saying that. It was just interesting to watch because I hadn't seen that before in my feed. So all of it was like how dumb it is to be anything, like believe in anything, how crazy it is to believe in anything. And if you didn't believe in these things, then the world would be better. We can make the world better if you didn't have these crazy fairy tales, unicorn beliefs. And it was just kind of,
yeah.
And I know like that's just reflecting my mind. And I'm just like, this is really like a nice little thing you're trying to present to me now, like
Right, exactly.
So kind of, it was interesting that you said that. I wanted to say something else about what you said, that you used the experience of something, you did something and you're just waiting for it to happen. That
Right.
feeling of, I don't know, there comes up, at least in my experience, like this point where that feeling is too much. So it's like, just whatever. Like, okay. Like, I remember like people saying they want to fight me in school and like being like, so like, oh man, like after school, I have to have this fight. And just being like all day long, like, I got to have a fight after school. Like,
you had to have a fight after? Really?
Yeah, I used to have a fight. And like, pretend like I'm okay with it, but like all day long, like, oh, this is going to happen. To the point like where it's like, all right, fifth period, like whatever, let's just fight now, because if I'm gonna get beat up, I'm gonna get beat up. If I'm gonna like whatever, let's just do it now. But that whole,
is that the meaning on your shirt? Is that your t-shirt? Bad things happen in Philadelphia. That's where you grew up, right?
I grew up everywhere, but yeah. So anyway, that whole, I feel like that happened in my mind like a couple of years ago. Like, let's just get it done. Like, whatever, like bring everything that needs to happen to me, because this little bit dribble here, a little bit dribble here, and this whole anticipation and like, let's just, we're gonna fight. Let's go ahead and fight now. Let's just do it. So,
right. Draw your circle.
Yeah.
I had that too. And when I was a boy, my dad used to work for General Motors, which is Holden, or what do you call it over there, Opel or something, or GMC, big car company anyway. He worked for them here in Australia, and he got transferred to a new, they don't just do cars, they do car parts and oil filters and things like that. Also for big industrial equipment. And in New Guinea, in Papua New Guinea, which is an island to the north of Australia, you guys know, they had a big mine there, like gold mines and whatever, run by Australian companies. And Dad was in charge of the airstrip where things would be flown in, supplies would be flown in up in the highlands, right? And he was the manager of the airstrip. So he would make sure all these planes, they were kind of smaller planes, would come in with these huge filters for trucks and things so they could do all their maintenance. And so I had to go to school in Papua New Guinea for a year, and me and my brother were the only two white kids in school. There was probably only about 150 kids in the whole school. And when I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, you don't think anything of being different to anyone else. You just play. You get out there and you play. It doesn't matter color, size, race, belief. None of that stuff comes into it, right? It's just totally whatever. But the parents, this is a kind of a thing, right? So the parents of some of because Dad was considered to be a big white chief, he had a big important job, and a lot of the island guys used to work for him. Those parents would encourage their kids to pick on me and my brother at school. Their parents would tell them that we were different. And so in Papua New Guinea, their hair is really frizzy. It's frizzier than your hair. It's totally like electric shock. And me and my brother had straight hair, and the kids started coming up, touching her hair and feeling her hair and pulling her hair because it was different, right? And I started noticing these differences. And eventually the hair touching got to hair pulling, like pulling our hair, and then poking and punching and all sorts of stuff. Because if you look in the animal kingdom, right? So if an animal is different in the same group, they'll ostracize it, right? So if a lion comes born and it's lame or whatever, they'll usually kill it off or get rid of it and whatever, because they don't want that genetic difference in the manifesting in the thing. It's just the survival of the fittest. That's also in humanity, right? Because we came from very primitive minded people. All of us, we've got this survival thing that goes on. And when I grew up there, I was finding myself fighting with these guys, and I didn't even know why. I had no clue why, right? It's like people would just come up and they'd push me in the playground like that. And I'd be like, what's that about? I didn't do nothing. I didn't realize that it was because I was different, right? I didn't realize. And I'd go home and I'd have blood nose and my torn shirt and whatever. And mum would be like, what happened to you? And I said, like, I don't really know. You know, somebody beat me up at school. And then the next day, the same thing, same thing. So mum eventually took me and my brother out of that school until she could work it out. And then, you know, Papua New Guinea is a very violent place anyway. Yeah, well, I didn't know. I didn't care about fighting or not fighting, you know, but like when you don't know why you're fighting, when you don't know what's going on and you just find yourself fighting anyway, like you're just fighting for your life, it's kind of like you don't want to go out and play at lunchtime because it's like, who's out there? Who's out there that's going to pull my hair and punch me? So, it was a funny thing. It was like, it's just like, what the hell? But yeah, there was always that fear, you know, that fear of, like, you faced it. I didn't face it because I guess I didn't really even know why it was occurring, but you face it. It's like, yeah, well, just bring it on. Let's do it now. You know, I didn't have that. I didn't want to be in that school. I wanted out. It didn't make sense why people didn't like me because I was just trying to be friendly. And I have these vivid memories of trying to be friendly, you know, just trying to get along. Didn't work. So, but anyway, we're always afraid of what we don't understand. You know, people are always apprehensive of things like that. It takes a lot to actually stop and process and do the work. Anyway, any questions? Anna, what's going on there? You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. I'm glad you went through all that stuff. That was good.
Yeah.
Was there a resolution there? Something's come out of it?
No.
Something miraculous.
And it's funny because so my boyfriend has been having all sorts of like GI issues and he gets really sick all the time. And just a couple of minutes ago, he came in super anxious because he wasn't feeling well. And so now I feel like it's like it's starting to come back up again.
Good. You want it to come up.
And I worry for him.
Right.
What?
You can't worry for him. Your worry for him is a projection. Can you see that? You can choose. You're going to worry for him and you're going to perpetuate that way of seeing things and that way of thinking, or you're going to represent something else for him. Okay. Invite him into your world. Invite him into your world. Don't join him in his. Okay. See beyond what you think that is, that person, that somebody with issues. Look beyond that and see the Christ. Help me to see the Christ in my brother. Only then will you be able to make a clear-minded decision about things. Right? Physician, heal thyself. You got to heal that in your mind first. I need to see the Christ in my brother. He's giving me an opportunity. He's playing a part for me. Anxiety. You just called it anxiety. Okay. Look at that idea in you, not in him. It'll have the same response in you, but you'll be able to deal with it now because you'll be able to take responsibility for it, rather than having your responsibility or the way you feel about it being dependent upon how he reacts or how he is. Right? Free yourself from whatever it is you hope or don't hope an outcome might be in that situation. Right? It's like, all right, I've got to let go here. I've got to let God in. I can't do anything about this. but I can heal my mind of the fear and the everything else in the situation. I can do that, right, with the Holy Spirit. I can't fix someone else out there. That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. You know, you can't fix yourself. If you could, you would have done it by now.
Yeah.
But everything in you is an opportunity. Everything out there, everyone's playing a part for you. Right? I look at it for me. It's like, well, here's someone playing a part for me. It brings up anxiety. It brings up whatever. I'm projecting it out there. This person's suffering. This person's whatever. It's hang on a minute. What am I seeing? An illusion or the truth? If I'm seeing my brother in Christ, there's no suffering possible.
Yeah.
If I'm seeing a story about a figure in my dream, right, I'm joining that figure in that world rather than seeing beyond it to the truth. Now, you can't see beyond it to the truth by yourself. You need help. Father, miracle. Show me the truth of my brother. Okay. You're not going to see the truth of that brother until you free that brother from your mind as that thing that you worry about. You can't have two views. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't serve two masters. You can't see two worlds. You have to.
Yeah.
And you'll flip-flop backwards and forwards with looking at the course for a solution and how you feel about it, worrying about it on this side or the other. Okay. Until you make a clear and determined choice. It's like, Jesus, I need help. I see that my mind is split here. I'm telling myself I want to see the truth of my brother, but I'm still holding on to these worries about him.
Yeah.
You know, those worries are deliberate. You want the worries. Oh, I see that I want to worry. You've made a decision to worry somewhere in your mind. Therefore, that's what you want. You don't worry by accident. You worry because you chose to worry consciously. You don't recognize having made that decision because it happened so quick and you're programmed to make those sorts of decisions so quick, which is why you need mind training to slow you down and bring you to a still point where you can stop for a second and go, all right, hang on a minute. Let me step back from this situation and ask for help. I see that I have no peace of mind in this situation. I see that I get upset every time something happens. I need a miracle. Right? I need something to happen in this situation that reveals to me or shows me the path to sanity and peace through it. Right? And then take your hands off the wheel and let it happen. Right? But that's always going to be through the heartfelt prayer for the healing of the mind that believes it's a body. You'll use anything, right? Because that's how you've trained yourself, and you've trained yourself badly. You'll use anything and anyone and any situation to confirm to you subconsciously that you're a body and not spirit. But now you're learning to use those same situations for a different purpose, right? But you've got to apply it. Don't waste your pain. Don't waste your pain. Pick up the book, do your lesson, read, whatever. Okay. At the end of the road, 6-foot hole pine box. You got nothing to lose. Can you hear that? You got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Now apply it. Look at it in your own mind. Look at it. Try to step back from the emotional reaction to it. Try to observe. Try to be not so much neutral, but impartial. Right? Look at the whole situation as if, let's say it was somebody else. Right? Like, let's say it was your next door neighbor and you knew the same situation was being played out there. You wouldn't have the same amount of emotionality around it as if it's affecting you directly. You could relate to it, But there's a part of you that's kind of like feels like you're sort of off the hook. Okay. Phew, glad that's not me. I can relate to that, but I'm glad it's not me. Now it's you. Okay. Try to step back from it. Look at the situation. It's like, okay, I've chosen to react in this particular way. This is how I always react in this situation. This is a cycle that comes around again and again and again in one form or another. And I always end up getting upset by it. Right? You can't fix the situation, but you can choose to be happy. Right? Now, your ego is going to say, well, that's ridiculous. How can you be happy in a situation like that? That makes no sense. Because worry seems to be the natural disposition of the mind. And if you feel like, if I'm not worrying about it, then I'm not being true in my relationship because I should worry. It's like, no, you shouldn't. You should stand up and represent the alternative to whatever that's being presented. Right? No man lights a lamp in the kitchen and puts it under a bushel. Right? Whatever that parable is, you got to shine your light, not buy into the story. Okay. All of these situations are opportunities to see where it is that I'm buying into a story about something. Oh my God, I just made that whole thing real to me. Jesus is telling me there is no world, that I'm the dreamer and I dream and everyone else is the figure in my dream. And whilst I continue to respond to them as if they had some sort of reality and power over me, I'm going to extend that power and reality out there rather than being the responsible one here. And I'm going to get the results of being the victim of things out there when it's good and when it's not good. I need to choose for peace. Whether this person says something, does something, or whether that person says something, does something, I want to be peaceful in all of these situations because I'm here to represent God. In the crowd of 1,000 people panicking about something, let me be the one that is able to maintain peace. Like the desiderata, I think it is. You know, if you can go placidly amongst the haste and the noise and the bustle of the world, then you've learned something beyond, you know. I'm going to look that up, actually. I haven't read that for many, many years. Right. Go placidly amongst the thing. Right. But you can't make a clear decision from a troubled mind. Impossible. Because you're going to be using the stimuli of the troubled mind as the criteria by which to make the decision. Right? Makes no sense. I've got this pile of shit or this pile of shit. Which one am I going to choose? Don't choose any. Don't choose for either pile of shit. Step back from it all and ask for something else. Ask for a miracle. Ask for help. Right? Believe that within you there is someone, some power, some higher thing that can help you find the way through this particular cycle where, through your willingness to forgive yourself for asking that person to play that part for you, you can be both liberated in your mind and extend that liberation automatically. It's like actors on a stage. All of a sudden, you've got to stop reading from your script. When you stop reading from your script on the stage, it's going to throw out all the other actors. They're expecting you to read your lines, play your part perfectly, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, hang on a minute, I see this as again and again and again. Every night I get up on this stage and I play the same part. I'm tearing up my script. I'm going to let something else happen that I'm done with this script. All the other actors are going to be like reading their script going, hang on a minute, she's not supposed to say that. Where's that? Where's that? That's not written here in my script. And they're going to have a moment. Make it up. They're going to have something else happen for them as well. Okay. Feel it, Anna. Feel it. Let it in. Right? So, oh man, it makes me feel anxious. makes me feel worries, makes me feel whatever that is, whatever that is. Now, use that for prayer. Look at all that energy you've got going on right now. Right? Look at it all. Don't buy into it, just look at it. Step back from it. It's like, man, I can get, if I let myself, I can get really wound up over all this stuff. Right? The observer, look at yourself, look what you're doing in your own mind. It's like, wow, look at me making up a story and then getting my knickers in a twist all over that story. Right? Why do I keep doing that? Right? Be the observer of what it is you're doing in your own mind to yourself. That's what needs healing. Now, use all of that energy, all of that emotionality in there, find it in your heart and use it for prayer. Heal my mind, Lord. I see what I'm doing. I need a miracle. I don't know how to stop doing this. I don't know how to stop buying into the same old storyline, reading from the same old script. I need something else. I'm done with this. Okay. But those have got to be your words, or not even your words. Like, God knows what you want before you ask, but like, you get what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Go into your closet and talk to your Father. I used to go into my bedroom, I'd lock the door. I didn't care what the kids were doing or how loud the TV got or anything. I'd just stay in there and I'd get on my knees and I'd wait there until I felt it, until I was honest. It's the honesty of the heartfelt prayer that brings a result. It's not words. Okay. Now,
yeah.
Take it from me. You should go and do that right now while it's fresh and hot and it's burning in you. Okay. Because tomorrow the pressure will be off. It'll be something that you experienced last night. Your partner just came in and it won't be as vital and it won't be as confronting as it is now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go then.
Yeah, you go. Use it for prayer. Don't waste your pain. Okay. Use it for prayer. Draw your circle, sit in it and talk to God.
All right.
Heal. Don't worry about your partner. Heal my mind. Okay. From there, everything else will change.
All right.
It's like breaking a link in a chain. Let's break the link in your mind, and then the chain that holds that story intact can just, it's no good anymore. Okay. Ta-da.
All right. Bye.
Love you. Angela, you all good? You got your mute button on there. Okay.
Yeah, fine. I'm just sitting in that circle now, and it's a better place to be. I feel more supported in that circle than being out there and all of this. Yeah. It's knowing to do that, to go there.
Right, exactly.
And I do. And it's I can't just come up with words to it, really. It's just right.
Yeah. Good.
It's right.
Good.
Things
you
come
can
up.
feel it. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. Although you are experiencing the denseness of the energy, you can feel it, but it's without that being in it.
Yeah.
It's like another element, but it's just, that's the place to be. And it's I know. And yeah, it brings, I can't really explain, but it brings things, it has a calmness, but when I come out of it and say, for example, I'm doing the work I do, it brings an added, I'm lost for words. I'm lost for words today to express what I'm trying to say, really. So it's like something else that I found in there, that now when I do the work I do, it makes that, defines that into more of a, to a higher level.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is good, both for me and my clients. So it is good. Yeah.
Good.
And I just noticed.
Physician, heal thyself.
Yeah.
Have you, who was it? Joel Goldsmith. I'll tell everybody this, The Infinite Way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that book. I love it. I just love how he puts his position as the healer and everything like that. Beautiful. Well, good. Tina, you're good. You have a question?
Do you mind?
Go on, do it.
All right.
You know you'll answer the question in the question itself.
Well, probably.
I guarantee it.
Okay. And I'm gonna ask it.
Go on then.
Yeah. Okay, so the situation that was happening when it was coming up, and there, and then I saw like, it's coming up, and this invitation was given, and I'm like, okay, this is a bit of an adjustment. In that situation, I could still see the sense of that that energy that was coming up, that being an outsider. I could see that still. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like the energy gets, it's
Right.
just, it follows everywhere. It gets just put out everywhere. So I could see that, and being there and just watching it. So there felt like there was a space between. There wasn't the intensity of just sitting with it,
Right.
but there was. I could see it happening, and I could see my mind wanting to see these spots and being ostracized or being different or not whatever. But there was this also at the same time, there was this support that had seemed to come through, and there seemed to be physical representations or people that would seemingly support, and that felt good. And I just wondered, was that like, I don't know, maybe I don't know if I'm being clear. If that was a distraction away from it, that support that seemed to be coming in, you know what I mean? If that was a distraction away from what was coming up. I don't know if this makes any sense.
Here's the thing that happens. Your mind is incredibly powerful. I'm going to tell you, don't waste your pain. Draw your circle and sit in it and breathe and, like offer it to God until it's done. And go through it, like go through that whole threshold thing. You're hearing me say that, and you're taking it on board that that's what you're to do, right, in a certain sense. But that doesn't mean that that's where you're at with it. All right, it's like reading this course. You can read this course from cover to cover and you can understand it. That doesn't mean that conceptually you're at the level of what this is telling you. All right. So what happens when you draw a circle and you say it, and I can feel that energy and everything else like that. Oh, we've lost Angela.
And I want to feel some sort of way about that.
Right. What happens is you're sort of entering into that circle under false pretenses. Right? You're never really sitting in your circle truly, honestly. You're always looking for a way out. And if you want to, you'll manifest one.
That's what I mean. Okay. Because I mean,
right.
Yeah. Because there was all this support that seemed to come in. And I was like, okay, this validating that whole thing. You know what I mean? Is it validating that whole thing of I don't feel supported? Now I feel this support, and now I feel okay now, because that's what I actually wanted, was to feel this support. And I'm like, okay, did that just distract me away from really going into this feeling of lack
Right.
and not being supported because I got a little bit of support.
Right.
So that's what I guess that was the question, because it was like there's some relief here. I'm like, oh,
It's
man,
external validation.
yeah, that's it. I guess that's what I wanted to find out. Like, not even find out. You're right. I answered the question myself, because that's what it felt like. Like,
Right.
there was this tension that was being created, and then there was a little bit like
Right.
shout us, Saltina. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Everything. Remember, anything on the external is validation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
demon of external validation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that you don't have friendships and relationships and all of those things, but just be aware that there's a whole nother level of purpose involved in them. If you're consciously aware of the intensity of your confrontation, it's like in this energy, right? In this teaching, in this curriculum, if you could truly hear what was being offered to you, you would want to put yourself in the most intense situation you could.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to let off the pressure.
Exactly. But that's what I felt. I mean, I just want to say this because I want to validate that I saw like, this is making me feel better, but I don't know that this is really the healing here. Like, this is a little bit
of the healing.
Exactly. And that's what I mean, so I didn't want to back off of that, and whatever.
You're still trying to attribute the healing to a situation that seems to have occurred.
No, I don't. I saw that that's what that was, that there was some relief, and I felt better, but it wasn't the actual healing. But then the relief, feeling better, made the catalyst kind of like, I could see like the catalyst was sort of like put to sleep a bit, because they're externally like something happened. And it's like, okay.
Okay, ready? I'm going to give you some homework.
Okay.
I want you to go out in your neighborhood and find the oldest African-American woman that you can. The oldest one.
Okay.
I don't care. There's none.
There's hardly any African-American women in the neighborhood, but I can find.
Are you African-American? Is that your thing?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
But it would be better if it was someone like from your own genetic thing, because we're dealing with a genetic trigger.
Okay. I can look for one.
All right. Hang on. Let me sit with it for a second. It's like what you want to do is expose the trigger, expose the block. Right, the trigger leads to the block. The trigger always shows up on the surface in the relationships and the situations and the stories and things like that. The block is why that trigger is there in the first place. Right? If you could consciously follow the trigger to where it leads to, it'd lead down to one of those 4 blocks: the desire to get rid of peace, the belief the body's valuable, fear of death, fear of life. Okay, it'd lead to one of those blocks. Everything leads to one of those blocks. Ultimately, those blocks are the one block: denial, right? But they show up in specific ways so you can track, if you like, or so you can bear witness to the fact that you have a conscious shift in relationship to those things. Mm-hmm. If you couldn't see that, then there'd be no point in doing any healing, because you wouldn't equate healing, or you wouldn't equate forgiveness with a shift in consciousness that had your best interests at heart. Right? You'd be just like, I don't know why that happened. I don't know. What does this mean? What does that mean? Right? You wouldn't be able to place more faith and more trust in your own process. Things would seem random. But because you've got things that you can refer to that go, aha, I see what I'm doing there, right? You can also see when you're not doing it, right? Or you can also see when that shift has occurred and you're done with doing it, right? So it's not that you want to recreate the same scenario or whatever to bring that trigger up again or anything like that. It'll come up. But in the interest of saving time, right, we ask for help. It's like, all right, show me what that is again. Show me, I'm willing to look at that again, Lord. Like, here I am. Mm-hmm. Right? one of the things that occurs to me, it's like where you feel like you don't fit in, don't belong.
And that's sort of my thing. Like, I mean, I am the only one like me in all of my kind of circles. You know what I mean? Like, and I forget,
Right.
like, in my group of people that you saw the shuffle, they all speak Spanish. You know what I mean? They're all, you know what I mean? And it's just all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's me. I'm hearing this and I don't quite fit in, and
Yeah.
but so I mean that's sort of my thing.
It'll come around again. Like,
I feel like I'm in it all the time.
your ego, yeah, but your ego's aware of it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your ego will be aware of that scenario and will be fabricating defenses against feeling it in that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel. Like I felt like some relief, like, oh, there was a sport, but then I saw like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess making a decision, for a start, it's like, all right, I don't want to feel that relief out there. I want to feel the relief because I'm feeling my Father's love. And that, like the only validation you're going to get is from God. The only validation that matters, external validation, is nothing. What is that?
Yeah. No, I saw that. I totally saw that. Like this is what I've always sort of used as a substitute, like I'll feel better when they recognize me. And then when I get a little bit of recognition, then I feel better for a minute until then that doesn't satisfy me. And the only reason I'm getting recognized is because I threw this tantrum or I did this and now and then nothing is never going to satisfy me. So I do get that it's never going to satisfy me. But I do feel like on the day that there was all of this little support that came in out of nowhere, people all of a sudden like, oh, okay, now I feel better now, but I don't think that this was healed. I am going home though. Yeah, exactly. And now I can't quite get that intensity again, but I am going home. So there's another thing that's coming up, like with going home to see my family. And
in Philadelphia?
No, my parents are in Virginia. And and all of the stuff is coming up with that. And so that's kind of
good. Breathe. Your family are going to be your biggest triggers.
Exactly. And I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm feeling like.
Just remember, attitude of gratitude. You got to find the gratitude. But thank you for playing that part for me. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's the next thing. So in about 3 weeks I should be gone. Let's see.
Right. Well, you could do it now.
That's what I mean. I don't want to wait 3 weeks.
Right. Draw your circle. You can already see the story. Close your eyes. You can already see the story in your mind. You've already seen your projected expectations onto something in 3 weeks' time, and now we're going to do it now. Right? Look at it. The tail of the snake already. You're already telling the story. Mm-hmm. The story is the tip of the iceberg. You really want to wait till you hit the iceberg? Let's look at it now and offer it to Jesus now. Father, I need help.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you'll find out, same thing with Anna. Go into your room, pray, ask for the healing of your mind in that situation, right? And you'll find out whether your prayer was honest by when you actually get there in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Just remember, even your best prayer is laced with denial. The ego infects everything. It's like you got a whole bucket of nice clear water and you put one drop of dirt in it. You may not see the dirt because it dissolves into the big whole bucket of water, but that doesn't mean that water's pure anymore. Even your prayers are laced with dirty water. But luckily, the Holy Spirit knows how to deal with that. You can interpret your prayers and find the honesty in there, but you got to find the honesty in you, which is why just sit with it. Sit with it. Don't let your mind wander off. Just sit with it until you feel it. It's like, hang on, I got to feel this in my heart. I feel this with my family. It's like, oh man, look at this story. It's going to make me feel something, this, that, and the other. You're feeling it now in expectation of it. Let's drop the expectation and just deal with what you're feeling. Right, there you go. Now stay there. Draw your circle. You see it?
Mhm.
Good. All right, I'm going to go and have some pudding. I'll leave you in your circle. I love you. Peace
Love
be
you.
with you. Until we meet again.
24 hours.